Gentlemen, welcome to Woodburn Accountants and Advisors webinar series on how to lead a team in China. Do you have a high turnover of employees in China? Are you having problems in implementing your company's philosophy and culture? Are you adapting to the Chinese culture? Woodburn Accountants and Advisors is offering a series of free webinars pertaining to this subject. Our aim is to provide you with information and tools to enrich your China skills and enhance your market entry efforts into the market. Before we begin today's session, however, I would just like to do a couple of slides of admin. The use of a VPN may be required, particularly by those people that are based in mainland China. I'm also currently on a VPN, and as is very common with online systems, we may have some technical issues along the way. Please don't exit from the webinar session. It usually does take about 30 seconds to 1 minute for everything to get back up and running. If you are having some audio difficulties, just note that you have the option of choosing either your mic and speakers on your phone, laptop, or tablet. If the problem persists, you may need to switch to a landline, and you have the option of choosing phone call or telephone. It will then look like this. You have a dial-in number, an access code, and an audio pin. As there are no moderators for today's session, we probably won't reach the Q&A section, but please don't be shy. Add questions or comments into the questions section of the control panel. I will spend a couple of minutes once the recording is completed to answer your questions directly, or otherwise email you thereafter. Please do take the opportunity to add any questions or comments you might have. Just to test the system, if you'd be so kind as to click on the hand button in your control panel, that will allow me to know that you're listening in. Thank you very much. If you could re-click it, then the hand button will also disappear. So let's begin today's session. For those of you that are new to our webinar series and you're not familiar with Woodburn, allow me to introduce who we are. Woodburn Accountants and Advisors is specialized in inbound investment into China and Hong Kong. We manage, administer, establish companies in both jurisdictions to meet our clients' specific requirements and wishes. This can include everything from market entry advisory, implementation, cross-border investment, tax optimization, ongoing corporate services, as well as corporate restructuring. Our clients are international companies focused on entering the Asian markets with a heavy focus on China and Hong Kong. And they are in all a variety of sectors, whether they're producing in China, exporting from China, importing into China, selling into China, and offering a variety of services locally within China. And they all range from startup organizations to small, medium-sized companies, multinationals, and we work with a couple of publicly listed firms as well. Just a minor disclaimer, the presentation for today is a general overview of the topic on offering low-cost trainings to employees in China. There's a variety of individuals here from different industries, sectors, roles within organizations. If you do have specific questions that are purely pertaining to your company and yourself, reach out to me on a one-to-one basis, and I'd be happy to assist you. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Christina Cola-Coluccia. I'm the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. I've been in this industry and in this sector since 2003 when I first arrived in Shanghai. Since then, I've been helping foreign investors with their market entry efforts as well as their expansion within the Chinese territory. Versus looking at my profile and kind of seeing my background, I always like at this point to explain a little bit why I do these webinar series. Meeting a lot of foreign investors over the last 15 years, one of the main traits that I've seen is fear in them in terms of doing business in China. The purpose of these webinar series is truly to educate and inform people about what possibilities exist, what type of providers there are in the market that can assist you and aid you with your China journey, and ultimately inspire you that you don't have to be afraid of the Chinese market. There's a lot of things that have been learned. I've highlighted a lot of things that I've learned in the last 2 sessions of this webinar series. And today, another thing that I've learned that unfortunately I didn't place emphasis on when I originally arrived in China is offering training for individuals within the Chinese companies in China. Training is great for business. And like I said, I learned this quite late in the game, but ultimately it motivates employees, it boosts retention, and it really drives efficiency. And one of the things that I've seen a lot with Chinese individuals in the market is they crave education, and particularly any form of Western type of education. But obviously, the biggest issue for startups that come into the Chinese market is that you're cash strapped and probably you haven't budgeted it for giving trainings to your employees. Is it possible or even advisable to invest in staff training when you are on such a bootstrapped budget initially when you're starting up in the market? And the simple answer is, of course, yes, especially in China where staff retention is a big issue. You need to have a clear plan of attack to really reap the rewards of low-cost training and development programs. And in this webinar session today, we're going to go through a bit of a step-by-step guide to create a highly trained, highly motivated workforce without spending a fortune. So this is the agenda for today's session. So obviously, the first step when you're looking at providing training to your employees is, identifying your needs. One of the first trainings actually that I offered my team was simple business writing for emails. And why is this? Primarily because in our industry and sector, we're only dealing with Western firms whose English level and probably their business level in terms of writing emails and whatnot is much more mature than what a lot of Chinese employees have learned in the market. So one of the key things for me was I just wanted to make sure that they could write proper emails with simple sentences, getting their ideas across straightforward in order to make clients understand what they were trying to say. Versus clients interpreting things and thinking that my staff were being rude and maybe a little bit too direct in their emails. So this was actually one of the first trainings that I offered some of my more managerial team to learn. And as they were learning, they then brought their new techniques and tools down to the lower staff, and we then provided in-house trainings to teach new employees who were coming into the company how to write emails. This was actually the first basic concept that I wanted to identify. So the first thing that you will have to do is identify your needs in terms of the training, right? What are you trying to accomplish with your startup? What type of employees are you trying to have? What should be their skill set? What should be their background? And obviously, as you start working with them, you've got to kind of make an assessment on what types of trainings would benefit them and what would be their learning styles. The issue always is when you're starting up a company in China, you tend to not delegate. You might have a team of people sitting in your office, but because they can't do one aspect, one skill set right, you tend to then say, okay, they can't do it, I'm going to put it on my plate. And then your plate just increases and increases and increases. Whereas you could offer them some form of training where they improve that skill set and you delegate that work to them. So you've got to understand what trainings will kind of be needed and what are their learning styles. Do they prefer to learn online? Do they prefer to have face-to-face seminars or trainings? You got to understand, what they prefer. And obviously, what are the main duties and skill levels required? Ultimately, and the most important aspect is what's the return on investment of the training? Now, the first trainings I provided was in response to email writing. That's very difficult to do an analysis on return of investment. And when I looked at it down the line, what I realized was my time spent on reading email drafts was reduced tremendously. And I can't tell you the amount of email drafts I would have to read on a daily basis before they would have to be sent out to clients. But as soon as my managerial team were getting this training and I saw that their level of their emails, basically I gave them and delegated them the fact that they didn't have to come to me anymore. They could just send out emails themselves. And the time that I saved on that, that was my return on investment, basically. So definitely you've got to look at what will be your long-term return on investment, particularly when you're looking at your startup phase. The next thing that you want to do is look online for trainings. Obviously, the easiest way that you can provide a training to a staff member is if they could do it either at home or in your office space, where they don't actually have to travel out, and where the session is also done all online. The other benefit for online training is that many online training platforms are free of charge, if not offer just a minimal cost. So I did a quick search yesterday, actually, just typed in online trainings, China, and this is what popped up for me. It was the Peking University. They offer a whole bunch of free online courses. If you see within the screenshot, they're offering 106 courses that are all online and free of charge. Now, obviously, not everything is going to be suitable for what you need. When I was looking through it, there was a lot of Chinese classes for beginners, and there were some professional service items that were also free of charge. These are things that are so simple, free of charge, that actually your team can take advantage of. Do a quick Google search, or even if you are in China, do a Baidu search on free online courses and see what pops up from the local universities or even from your local chambers of commerce. But the online aspect is so critical. And my webinar series is just also a simple form of education for most people because it is free of charge, and we are talking about what you can do in the Chinese market. There are thousands of providers in the Chinese market that offer free webinars, whether it's through corporate service providers, accounting firms, HR firms. Try to subscribe to their mailing list to see what is free, what is in English, what is in Chinese, that you can then also continue your China education. But there are so many opportunities for people to do things online, to do them from abroad, and for it to be also free of charge. The next is also training from within your company. Entrepreneurs or even larger companies that are newly set up in the Chinese market may not have the resources or the funds to bring in outside experts like industry influencers or training professionals. The low-cost answer to your training needs may lie within by encouraging the most skilled or experienced employees to train up other staff. Like I said, I had my managerial team go to these trainings, and then they did the in-house trainings for all the lower level staffs. And it was very interesting because my concept was I paired the employees together. They then created presentations, and that was another exercise for them in terms of creating a training presentation. And it was extremely cost effective. And ultimately, they all started learning to each other because those people in the in-house training started asking questions that hadn't been raised in the bigger trainings. So everyone was learning from each other. And what I discovered was by doing these in-house trainings, first of all, it boosted the ego of my managerial team that they could do something like this. And it's something we're promoting on a monthly basis actually now, where we do different topics. We also ask our staff what would they like to learn or improve as a skill set, and we are trying to foster this within our own company. But it really helped with communication skills. It helped with sharing, it helped with learning, it helped with bonding. It was sort of like a team building exercise in itself. And as I highlighted yesterday, personal relationship development is such a key component of staff retention that these trainings actually did this. There was a lot of personal relationship building, and people got to know each other very much through these in-house trainings. For me, it's boosted retention. It's something that's free of charge. The only downside to it is the time spent, where the trainers have to create the presentations and obviously spend, whether it be an hour, half a day, or a full day on the training. We don't do them on weekends. It's something we did consider, but we don't really want to take up the free time of our employees. And this, for a lot of employees, is considered as a downside if you do these in-house trainings on the weekends. We try to do them really during downtime periods of the month, where we know they're not going to be bombarded by clients or client questions or phone calls or trips outside of the office. So it's really a matter of developing that dynamic within your company, boosting the ego of your managerial team to give in-house trainings, or even finding a skill set with somebody who's lower down in the hierarchy that, you know, a manager could take advantage of. So definitely think about training from within your company. Getting expert local support. While obviously online training is cost effective, in-house training is also cost effective, you obviously can't beat expert local support, especially from other entrepreneurs who have firsthand experience in the Chinese market. The good news in China is that there is a wealth of support available, either for free or at a marginal cost compared to what general training companies charge for these types of training, and includes anything and everything from startup networks to real educational events. And the support ranges from training on how to launch a company in China to forums on finding and utilizing training opportunities for employees, all the way to trainings on marketing in China, etc. Now, in order to show you a couple of examples, I've used the websites of the chambers of commerce where I'm a member of, or my firm is a member of. In almost every first-tier city in China, you have the local, not the local, but the country chamber of commerce. So for example, in Shanghai, you've got the American Chamber of Commerce, you've got the Canadian, the British, the Australian, the German, the French, the Benelux, the Swedish, and the list goes on. In addition to that, if your home jurisdiction is a smaller country, you will also have the Trade Commission officers that also help to provide trainings and educational support to companies that are launching in China. Now, I've given Shanghai as an example, but you have Beijing, you have also chambers of commerce in Guangzhou, you've got chambers of commerce now also in tier 2 cities like Wuhan, Chengdu, Chongqing, where you can find support. Now, the chambers of commerce, they do charge for their trainings, but again, like I said, if you compare, well, first of all, with your membership, you will get certain quantity of hours free of charge. But on top of that, if you look at the fee cost, it really is minimal compared to what you're looking at when you work with very large training organizations. So just again, I quickly took the website, the screenshots from websites, but I really wanted to give you guys the opportunity to see. And if you're not from this jurisdiction, so if you're not an American company, it doesn't mean you can't join the American Chamber of Commerce, all right? There is an annual membership fee, but then you do get benefits associated with the trainings and whatnot that are provided. And your staff can go to these trainings, okay? So the first one is just the American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. Now, if you look on this is just trainings. And as you can see, half of what is listed here are online trainings. You're looking at everything from strategic thinking to future leadership to the art of explanation. I mean, all things that will help the skill set of your Chinese staff. And the beauty of this is that generally they're in Chinese, but a lot of these are also in English. So if you do have Western staff in China who need to have a better understanding of the cultural the cultural way of doing business or things like that, they will also have trainings that are in the English language. Some are full days, some are online, some are half day. But this is just even one simple screenshot to show you. There are 36 trainings that the American Chamber of Commerce is currently offering. And it's a great support system. Here is a screenshot from the British Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. They offer a training school series and training credits that can be earned. You have training school, you know, on the top you've got the upcoming training school events. You've got past training school events, and it gives you everything from time management, negotiation skills. You know, from 2018, they have email and business writing. All of these skill sets that you may find that your staff need. Every chamber offers different types of trainings and skill sets, so you may have to kind of do your own research in terms of what benefits you. To give you an idea of cost, I've extracted just one training session from the Australian Chamber of Commerce on communication, influencing, and negotiation skills. And here, they're charging, if you are a member, 4,200 RMB for a full day training. Now, if you then convert this into your home currencies, you will find that it's not that expensive when you compare to, again, the big training companies that are out there. And again, like I said, every chamber offers you a certain number of hours as part of your membership subscription. Take advantage of that. You get that on a yearly basis, and it's really, really useful. A lot of people don't realize what the chambers can offer to foreign investors. You should definitely meet with your chambers of commerce to see, you know, what are your needs? Well, first you have to analyze what your needs are, right? Identify your needs, and obviously see what they can offer you. Now, for those of you that are not based in China, you might be wondering, how can you improve your educational skills besides joining Woodburn's webinar series? I'm a member of the China-Britain Business Council. They have 13 offices in the UK. They also have a bunch of offices locally in China, and they offer everything from SME forums to China business clinics to master classes to cultural trainings. I think it's phenomenal, and they do all of this within the UK, which means you don't even have to travel to China for these types of trainings. If you are from Germany, there are a bunch of China-related business associations as well, where they offer training, forums, and seminars, which can help you to further your education and help your staff to further their education on how to do business in China. The US is the same in terms of having the US-China Business Council. Every jurisdiction will have China-related associations, and obviously when you are in China, take advantage in terms of educating further educating your local staff. I can't emphasize more how much they love this. Yes, from a cost perspective, I always try to stick with online trainings or in-house trainings. But on occasion, if I do find a training that I think will fit the need of one of my team members, I will let them get out of the office for a day or two, or even half a day to take part in this type of training. They love it. Why? Because it gives them the opportunity to get out of the office. Two, they get to network with people that are also having the same need as them in terms of further educating their skill set. And the best is when they come back to the office and you tell them you now have to design a training in order to teach your team members what you've just learned. It's a full process. And again, it is time consuming. There are time constraints. And when you're in your startup phase, this is probably something that you're not thinking about. But please do place an emphasis on the importance of these types of trainings. For those of you that are online today or that will be listening in, you might be entrepreneurs in the Chinese market. You might have had the greatest idea, and you may want to actually now launch your new venture, obtain investors, and get maybe some mentors that can guide you. I've only now pinpointed one support group, but there are a bunch of other support groups as well. Here's the website of ChinaAccelerator.com. And basically here, what they do is their programs and events are organized and designed to provide technical and non-technical trainings for entrepreneurs. And this can include how to give a pitch, how to create a business plan, how to do prototype creations, how to do demos, how to do presentations. And basically, China Accelerator has a whole list of mentors whereby you can request a mentor in a certain industry, let's say the accounting industry or the legal industry. You'll be appointed a mentor who will then give you advice and guide you free of charge in terms of in terms of your company development. China Accelerator, however, is focused really on internet-related companies and startup ventures. But they will also introduce you to industry leaders. They'll introduce you to investors. And like I said, there's not just China Accelerator. There's a bunch of other support systems that are out there where they offer these types of trainings to startup organizations, to entrepreneurs, in terms of how to develop their businesses in the Chinese market. The next tip that I want to share is share resources with other new companies. Now, if you've lived in China for a certain period of time, probably the one thing that you love doing is sharing your experience. I do. And that's why I have this webinar series. I love to share my experiences, whether they have been bad or good. I think what is so wonderful about the Chinese market is that whoever has been an expatriate or even a local employee, they love to network and they love to share their ideas and their experiences about what they've done in the Chinese market. If you go to networking events within the various chambers of commerce, you will actually meet with people and share ideas and concepts with them. Now, what stops you from collaborating with these other companies that might be in completely different sectors and industries from you, from organizing trainings where you can share the cost and where both sets of teams can learn from each other? It's kind of like a skill swap, right? Or creating a type of knowledge center or community amongst yourselves where you can help each other and share the costs for the trainings. Another advantage is if you have started up in the Chinese market and you are in a serviced office like CEO Suite, Regis, Executive Center, WeWork. I mean, this is just to name a few, but there are a bunch of others as well. You are considered actually not just a client of that business center, but you are actually considered a member of a community, whereby you have the ability to network with the other members of that community. You have the ability to share resources amongst the community. And for me, for nearly all the clients that I help to incorporate in China, I continuously recommend starting off in the business centers, just so that your staff, if you've just hired one person, they're not alone. They're not sitting isolated in their home and they're alone. They're in a community, they're in an office space, they get to go somewhere every day, they get to share ideas, but they also get to ask for help, which is a critical component. And all of these business centers do offer monthly, if not weekly, trainings or events to help people to spread the information. So it's definitely something I highly recommend that people consider when they first enter into the Chinese market. You've got to also be able, if you decide to go the route of developing a training program for your team and employees in China, is how can you measure the result of these trainings? And this is twofold. One, how do you measure that the training was good so that perhaps you can repeat it? And second, what did your staff member get or learn from that training? So you've got to be clear about what you're measuring and why, and what aspect you're measuring. You've got to connect learning to obviously performance. So when they did this email writing course, I wanted to see the result from the emails that they were then writing. I didn't collect data primarily because I just didn't have time to collect data, but obviously as I was reviewing email drafts, you get an inkling, oh, this is actually going a lot faster. And obviously you want to keep it simple. Now, here you've got to make sure that you're very proactive in measuring the trainings as quickly as possible. One, because if your staff either didn't learn properly or isn't utilizing the tools that he had learned, then one, you've got to think, well, is this staff somebody worth retaining and keeping? Why are they not implementing the tools? Has it something got to do with the trainer and the training itself, or is it because this individual is just not interested, right? The whole purpose is making sure that by going to a training, somebody is going to get something out of it and utilize it within your business. You got to make sure that it's actually being done. If it's not being done, why is it not being done? Does it mean that as a consequence, you've got to let someone go, you've got to give them a warning, or you've got to stop that form of training and find a new trainer that can help you to build that type of skill set? So it's very, very important to actually measure the training results. Last but not least, you've got to spread the word of your training opportunities to others for the primary reason that employees love the fact that they get trainings. Salary component is something obviously that's very important, but if they are getting additional added value from your company, that is something that cannot be turned into a monetary component, they will love it. They will take it into consideration. And obviously, not all startup companies are offering high quality trainings. But if you are, then it's a clear competitive advantage that could win you employees from your competitors as well. So why not publicize the fact that, you know, there are training opportunities, that there are these types of benefits. It's basically a PR function for you in order to get new employees, right? In order to get more resumes coming in. In addition to that, it helps you to retain existing staff as long as they're truly learning something from their trainings. In addition, it really does impress clients, suppliers, stakeholders with the fact that you're providing continuous education to your employees. It's something that they really do look on very highly. So if you are a startup organization where you're looking for funding, that it is important that you maintain these types of trainings. Last but not least, don't stop there. While training is obviously clearly important for employers and employees, it should not be something that's treated in isolation. You've got to motivate staff, especially in startup organizations where retention is really a major challenge. If you are a startup and you've hired one person, it's very difficult to retain that person on a continuous basis, especially if they don't see more employees that are joining and coming in. New companies to the Chinese market obviously need to consider different ways to create a happy, stable workforce and persuade employees to stay put versus going out to competitors and getting a higher salary. They need this additional benefit for them. I compare staff relationships to marriages, and the two key components is always trust and communication. Trust can only be developed over time, but clear and transparent communication, you can't place any value on that. It's got to be very clear to the employees, what are their job roles, are they in the right job for the skill set that they have, and having this open communication is important. In yesterday's session, I was highlighting one case study whereby I was saying that it's very important to develop personal relationships with your employees, take them out for lunch, talk to them, understand what they like about the company, what they don't like about the company, listen to them and see, you know, whether there are things that you should be changing over time. Involving staff in the development of the company is really critical. And I highlighted this in the last two sessions that I've done. Listen to your staff, see what they can give in terms of ideas in order, again, to boost retention, increase competitiveness, increase the individual performance of each of the employees. I did say yesterday that this was going to be a very short presentation. It was a very, direct presentation purely on offering trainings to the local employees. My emphasis and the conclusion really for today is the importance there has to be in developing a training program for your local employees. And you have so many options, everything from online, free of charge, in-house, to also then working with the chambers of commerce and ultimately working with bigger training companies as well. But it is something you should definitely implement in order to be able to retain your own employees. It's a key component for leading a team in China and making sure that your team remains happy. There were actually no questions that came in, so I do want to thank everyone for joining me. You still have an opportunity to add questions or comments into the questions section of the control panel. But if you do want any free advice or an opinion, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you're new to Woodburn, we offer free legal tax newsletters on a weekly basis, so please feel free to sign up. You can also follow us on various social media sites, whether it's my personal social media site or the corporate one. And last but not least, we have 2 more webinar sessions for this week. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about how to employ talent in China and what considerations you need to make. And then on Friday, we're going to have a kind of a new type of webinar session. It's going to be a discussion between Manfred Steinkellner from Steinkellner China Search and myself on how to find the right people for your organization in China. So I want to thank you all for joining me. It was a very quick session today, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Have a great afternoon and goodbye.